All right, guys, no cameras in this one. If you're stumbling upon this video, hello, my name is Omar. I do mostly camera videos and lens reviews and photography advice and kind of nonsense. But in this video, I thought I'd share my podcast for two people setup. I have a podcast with my friend Mo. We're childhood buddies, and we get together once a week and talk nonsense like photography and comics and tech and movies. It looks a little something like this.
One eyebrow.
I love what he's like, Z or Z, depending on what country you're from.
He's awesome. You know, don't give up on street photography because you had a confrontation. You're going to be on the street. If you spend 3 hours worth of street photography and you have 1 or 2 confrontations, you still had a great day.
Yeah,
but
right.
you can minimize those confrontations with a few things that we just talked about.
So I did a lot of research and got a lot of advice from different YouTube channels. So I wanted to kind of give back. So if anyone stumbles upon, maybe they can pick up some stuff from this video. Not an audio expert, not a video expert, not a podcasting expert by any means, but take what you can because that's what I found from all the videos I searched. A little piece here, a little piece there. So hopefully you get a little nugget that might work for what you're trying to do, trying to figure out how to do a 2-person podcast. Actually, a 2-person video podcast. Yeah. Okay, first, you got to think about your room. You got to think about your location. When we first started the podcast, we tried in my studio, and the space was just a little too big and too echoey. Mo is like, hi there. He doesn't really know.
This is NPR Radio. Welcome aboard. Thank you for being here.
So we actually moved to this small attic home office that I have, so the walls are a little closer. So more important than any recording device, any microphone, is your location, what room you're in. So try to find the smallest space that you can. And if you were doing just an audio podcast, a closet is better than any kind of room you can find. The smaller, the better, so that the sound waves don't travel and come back into your microphone and give you echo. Now, with our podcast, we wanted it to be kind of mobile. So sound-wise, we had to be able to treat the room, but then take it down. So I found the solution that worked best was having these moving blankets. Now, the moving blankets we could put in the back of a car if we were going to record somewhere else. So I found that this solution was great if your studio is going to kind of be a podcast mobile space where you're going to record in different locations, or you don't want to have acoustic panels everywhere or foam on the wall. All right, recording audio and recording video. With a zero budget, we had to come up with something efficient and has some kind of backup. Number one, for audio, I wanted microphones that were small and that weren't super expensive. I started with the Samsung 2QU microphone. This is the same microphone as the Audio-Technica ATR 2100. I'll link that one up too. But what I loved about these microphones is they have both USB and XLR. That way we had some flexibility if we ever were going to record on an iPad or if we just had a laptop. With the USB, we can connect to a computer and record that way. But XLR connections give you a better audio signal, and so we purchased these to have both the XLR and the USB. Now, to mount the microphone, we used to have these microphone stands that swung around. They kind of slowed down our setup process. You had to like screw them in. They also were awkward, you know, with the legs and everything. So if you have a permanent setup, those arms are pretty good. But since we have a setup that breaks down, these are drum stands, and I'll link up below too. They're on stage, and I think what's great is they're kind of heavy. They're cheap, number one. 2, they're heavy, so they don't move around too much. And they're actually I think like the bass drum microphone stands, but they work great for moving around, putting away. So actually, I like this a lot better than having the arms and having to take the arms off and all that stuff. Now, the other thing is we got some sort of pop filters here. We have a foam pop filter, and then we put on these little mesh things on top. And the reason I put the little mesh thing on top is because it came with a little, number one, it came with kind of like a little shock, put the microphone in a little shock rubber band thingy. And so the pop filter was like a little bonus on there. So we have kind of like double pop. These microphones without any kind of pop filter are unusable. Here, let me show you. Podcasting. I love podcasting. Even with the foam, I felt the P's would show up a little bit more. So we got the mesh here, podcasting. and we lost our plosives a lot. Okay, so that's pretty much the microphone setup. Now, the microphone is hooked up XLR, and the microphone is going directly into the Zoom H5. The Zoom H5, now, originally we had the Zoom H4, but that one doesn't have these beautiful, awesome little physical knobs. And the physical knobs are like the best. So you can turn up, turn down your volumes, your levels. So the Zoom H4 and the Zoom H5 record these multi-tracks. So that's one thing you need if you're recording a podcast with two people. It's great to record onto two separate tracks. In case there's an issue with one of the tracks or someone is too low, you can work on each track individually and then put them together, which is great. But the Zoom H5 has a head, which is removable, and you can put on extra XLR connectors on there. So if your show grows or you get more friends. So recovered audio record. If I hit record on the Zoom H5, it's recording on there, but we also need a backup. And one thing that's great to have a backup is the audio from the Zoom H5. I have it coming out of the line out. And what it is the line out actually goes into the camera. And I'm shooting right now on the Canon 5D Mark IV. And if you know cameras, that has a horrible audio preamp. So we lower our the volume on the microphone input to the lowest it goes. And we adjust our levels here so that if anything happens with this audio here, at the very least, we have our audio recorded pretty cleanly because it's coming from this microphone into the camera. Hello, testing 1 2 1 2.
Microphone check 1 2. What is this?
Yeah.
No.
And that has happened where I have forgotten to hit record. I'm such an idiot. So I like that backup there. I like the backup that the line out, it's just in 3.5 cable to 3.5, and that goes into the microphone input. You just have to make sure the levels are correct so that you don't peak on the camera. You'll need some headphones so that you know what distance to speak at, so you can actually monitor your audio as you speak. So we use the Audio-Technica. Mo has the M50 because he already had those, and I have the M40s. The Audio-Technica M40s, M50s are great headphones. Highly recommend those. Now, there's only one microphone out, and since we're using the line out for the camera, we have a splitter so that our headphones can split and we can both listen to our audio and listen to the other person speaking. Now, while all our talking is going on, the camera is recording. Now, you'll want a camera that can record at least 30 minutes, or if you're using a camcorder or something that can go beyond that, that's great. Some of these cameras only record for a certain amount of time, so you have to be careful with that. The Canon records for 29 minutes and 29 seconds, something like that. So that works for us because our show is really short. And if we need to stop, we can stop and start again. Now, let's show you some post-production. What happens when you have the card with the video and then you have the card with the audio. I'll show you how I post-process those two, how I edit the show, and how we deliver it. Okay, audio, then video. If you're doing an audio-only podcast, well, then you just process and fix up your audio, cut your audio, fix it, send it out. Now, the way my brain works, I knew I had to edit the video first, which meant, hey, what's going to happen to our nice clean audio from our Zoom H5? So here was my solution. First, I was going to process the audio so it sounded as best as it could. There's a bunch of stuff you could do to your audio so that you can sound better. Now, every voice is different, so you're going to have to play around with the settings. But what's great is I found this patch. It's called a GarageBand patch from the website 6 Colors. I'll link up that article below. And they talk about what you should do to your audio in a podcast, but they included a nice little patch which worked with our voices really well. And so it was like a one-all solution perfect. So I'll share that below. Audio in, and what I'll do is I'll apply that 6 Colors patch on there. And what I'll do is I'll just export the file. I'll export it as its own MP3, a high quality MP3, and I'll bring that into Final Cut Pro. Now, what I'll do is I'll sync in the raw video, everything we recorded, with the total process audio, and sync those two together to make a synchronized clip. Great feedback on the last podcast, especially the one that was like, you went too long, man.
Yeah, that was like 8 hours, bro.
Yo, that was good, but shut up.
I love you, but I don't love you.
Great feedback on the last podcast, especially the one that was like, you went too long, man.
Yeah, that was like 8 hours, bro.
Yo, that was good, but shut up.
I love you, but I don't love you.
So after the Final Cut edit, which is video edit, I'll obviously export that for YouTube as a YouTube video, but I'll also go and export that finished movie as an audio file. I'll just call it a master file, and what I'll do is I'll export it as an MP3, and that gives us two files. It gives us a video file and an audio file. And with the audio, you need some kind of podcast, distributor. And we've decided to use Anchor because the Anchor app allows you to publish to iTunes, to Spotify, to all kinds of other podcasting sites just from Anchor. Right now, Anchor is working for us because it's super easy, but we may explore other providers. But something you're going to have to deal with is how are you going to get your podcast out there? All right, if you have any questions about the setup, let me know below. I'll try to answer as best as I can. Good luck with your setup. Good luck with your podcast, and merch. Not available anywhere.
Nowhere.
Limited.
Limited to nothing.
Bye, guys. We'll see you next time.